Hello. Welcome to the podcast. So far, I'm trying to flip my camera around, and oh, there we go. Look at that. We figured it out. All right, so we are live. This is podcast number 1, and so far, my friend from Venezuela is in the room. We're streaming live on on Periscope. Whoops. But it will be up on Soundcloud after, and it will be up on YouTube, and everyone can watch it again and again and again. And I have my phone because my notes are on my phone, because I'm not good enough to do this without notes yet. There is a story behind that intro song, actually. Can you hear my chair squeaking? It's because we have really professional things here. I commissioned that. That song was commissioned by someone. It was auctioned off. It was offered as an auction for some charity thing, and I don't have things of value to sell, so I offered my musical talents. And so this gentleman bought it, and I took 5 years to deliver. So now I feel like I owe him interest, which will be paid in the form of free advertisement for his business. So Action Sport Physio. If you live in the Montreal area, and you do sports, and you often need physiotherapy services, there's 3 on the island of Montreal, 1 in Laval and 1 in Longueuil, I think. Action Sport Physio. It is very high rated, so highly recommended. And podcast number 1, if you're joining us, we're going to be talking about a few interesting things like Turkey, what happened in Turkey. The purpose of this podcast is going to be to provoke thought. I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. I'm going to be asking you to tweet me a lot because I want to know what you think. And so I hope you'll indulge that. For sure, you're going to hear my opinion as well. Someone's asking me on Periscope if I want to speak about NICE. I could speak about NICE. I think the thing about NICE, though, is that it's kind of straightforward. Terrorism is bad. I think I've participated too much in the, is Islam bad or good debate to want to really bring that up in this episode, but maybe in another episode. But yeah, we'll be talking about Turkey. I'm going to break it up with some live music to try to lighten the mood. And then we're going to talk a little bit about religious reform in general. So actually, we will end up talking a little bit about Islam because that's kind of in the spotlight these days. So let's get to it. Turkey. There was a military coup. They attempted to take over their government. And when I found out about that, it was the most surreal thing because I started reading about it on Twitter. I was a bit late because I'm not constantly glued to Twitter. But I started reading about it, and as soon as I started reading about it, it got all dark and stormy outside. And I was like, is Jesus coming back? And as far as I know, Jesus did not come back. I would have been really thrilled about that. Tweet me at @DShortenMusic if Jesus came back in your hometown, and because I would like to be in the loop about that if that is the case. But to my knowledge, Jesus is not back, and the world just sucks. So a little background on Turkey. I'm not an expert, obviously. It concerns me a bit because I have a really good friend in Turkey, and I have some friends from Turkey who have family there. Apparently, Turkey has a history of military coups because their founder, Ataturk, everybody loves him. He's the one who kind of gave them all their secular values, separation of mosque and state, and so they really respect him as a historical figure. And their current leader, Erdogan, has kind of been eroding those principles. So he's lost a lot of support. A lot of people accuse him of being Islamist. I don't know if I've done enough research to really be able to draw the same conclusion, but he does draw a lot of support from Muslims, I think. So that might tell you something. So the coup failed. But here's the question I want to ask. Because people were criticizing this. There were some people, most people were criticizing the coup because it's anti-democratic, right? Erdogan was elected, so he should be able to go through his term. That's fair enough. But other people were saying, well, if you start going against the founding principles of your country, even if you're elected, you are in the wrong. And so to me, that's a really interesting question. And that's the question I'm going to ask you. And I want your responses on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, I hope you're on Twitter. If not, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but got to get on Twitter, guys. It's where all the news is. So this is the question. Is rebellion against an elected power inherently immoral due to it being anti-democratic? Or are there times where it should be okay? I think there has to be times it's justified. And even if you look in the US Constitution, in the Constitution itself, it says that the reason they're allowed to bear arms, at least one of them, is to rebel against a government that becomes tyrannical, which presumably is going to be elected, because that's how the United States works. So it's a little more complicated than saying, you should never rebel against an elected power, in my opinion. But I'd like to hear your thoughts about that. One kind of token historical example would be Hitler. He was elected, and then he confiscated everyone's weapons. Should everyone have just laid down and been like, oh, well, he was elected, so let him do his Jew killing thing until the next election, and then we can elect someone who won't exterminate an entire race of people, So that's a little weak, but if you're on my side and you think that it should be appropriate, that it's appropriate at times, then tell me when. Tell me when it's appropriate. What should be the conditions of that? I'd love to hear from you. At dshortenmusic on Twitter. You can also go to my website, davidshorten.com. There's a contact page. Okay, how are we doing for time? I think we're approaching the 10-minute mark. Let's do some music. I'm not sure how this is going to go because I get nervous when I perform. And this will be performed. But I hope you guys like the 80s music. I think right off the bat, most people are like, ugh, the 80s. But every era has good music. That's what I believe, at least. And this is a song called I Owe You by Freeze. So we're going to do a little rendition of that. If you'll bear with me while I figure myself out. Yeah, we good?
We good. Do you hear me?
We'll go with that key. you. I sometimes cry. A-E-I-O-U. I sometimes cry. You tell me that you love me every day. When we're alone, I really feel in love. But when we're out with friends, I see a change. You treat me bad, I feel like second best. I want your love, I want your love. Give me your love, give me your love. That's how I feel, and I want it to be real. I want your love, I want your love. Give me your love, give me your love. I need your touch and I owe you so much. A-E-A-E-I-O-U. I sometimes cry. A-E-A-E-I-O-U. I sometimes cry. I want your love, I want your love. Give me your love, give me your love. I want your love, I want your love. Give me your love, give me your love. I want your love, I want your love. Give me your love, give me your love. I want your love, I want your love. Give me your love, give me your love. A-E-A-E-I-O-U. I sometimes cry. A-E-A-E-I-O-U. I sometimes cry. That went pretty well, I thought. I was really worried that was going to go a lot worse. Stay tuned for times where it will definitely go worse. So yeah, that was A-E-I-O-U, or just I-O-U, actually, by Freeze. Check out that 80s music, guys. Don't miss out. Don't be prejudiced against the 80s. We know the 90s were good. We get it. We had Prozac. We had Savage Garden. The girls had their NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. But there's things to love from every generation. And thank God. Thank God for that. Thank God that that there's never a time where just all music is so bad. Even though these days it seems like that may be how it is if you listen to Top 40. We got some good stuff still. I'm thankful. So, we're going to finish off this production by talking a little bit about religious reform. And I don't have much time. I have like a minute and a half. So what is religious reform? Well, basically it's changing a religion in any way, which complicates things because what is a religion really? So for instance, one example of what people consider religious reform was the Protestant Reformation. I'm a Christian. So back in the day, the Catholic Church was being abusive, and a guy named Martin Luther stood up and he said, "Hey, this isn't right." And we're getting our outro music. So basically, Christianity itself didn't change because the Bible is still the same. These days, people are talking about Islamic reform. And there's this guy, what's his name? Majid Nawaz, who he says that religion is what you take out of it. But if religion is what you take out of the text, then how can the text be said to be God's word? Because if God had an intended meaning, then that would necessarily have to be one meaning. So here's my question. What is religion? Is it what God intends, or is it what we interpret? Tweet me at Shorten Music. We'll be back next time. Check it out on Soundcloud, YouTube. I'm going to make it easy for you, but follow me so you can make sure that you see everything And we'll try to time that outro better the next time. Stay tuned. Have a good one, guys.